Hey Jake.
Yeah.
I don't see Michael Fonlander in here, or is that just me?
I don't see him either.
Okay, but every other presenter is accounted for.
Gotcha.
Um,
I think he's third, so we can go ahead and get started and see if he shows up.
yeah. Otherwise, I can cover it miter. It'll be off the cuff, but I can do it.
Sure. I just received a message from him a couple minutes ago, so I think he's around.
Oh, okay. But
All right.
yeah, kick
All right.
off.
I think we're ready to get started. All right. So welcome to Computer Club, everyone. Today we're going to do a kind of career and internship. What's up?
I think it was just feedback.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Yeah, we're doing a career and internship presentation today. We'll have multiple speakers going over some stuff they've done. Be sure to fill out the attendance link right there. That's attendance.dsucomputer.club. And then Jordan's gonna be our first speaker. He'll be talking about Booz Allen. You ready, Jordan?
Yeah, I'm good. Is my volume okay or am I too loud?
You're good.
All right. So I was an intern at Booz Allen Hamilton for the past 2 summers. This summer, however, with the whole coronavirus pandemic thing, was a little different than how the internship is normally ran. So similar, I still had a team just like every other year. I think my team this year was 4 people, including myself. Last year it was only 3. Normally you're on teams of 3 people to 5 people, depending on how big your project is. This summer I did a cloud security application. So basically we just made a cloud security tool that monitored hacks or attacks of any form, really attacking a cloud system. So we had a web front end that was displaying everything very colorfully with graphs and pie charts and bar charts. And I didn't actually do the web front end portion of it with the graphs and stuff. But my teammates did a really good job at putting that together. Our back end was using an open source tool called Falco. Basically, it just monitored system calls on the containers because we were running Docker Swarm in a cloud interface. It was really kind of messy, but at the same time, it was just to prove a point, and it was a proof of concept of that you could do it and change what's already out there on the market currently. So my internship was fully remote this summer, which is a lot different. Normally, you go out to Maryland and work out of their Central Maryland location. Obviously, Booz is a nationwide company, so you can apply to different locations across the country. However, their cyber location is in Central Maryland, but other locations have, if you're not interested in directly cyber stuff, other locations have different areas of expertise. I don't know exactly what those are off the top of my head because I didn't work for them, but I know for if there are any game design majors in here, I know their Omaha location does stuff with like game design, so you could take a look at that. That's the only other location I know what they did. But yeah, as I said before, it was fully remote this summer. It was the first time in the company's history that they've done a remote internship. It actually ran a lot smoother than I was expecting it to. Normally, the internship is 10 weeks, and they cut it down to 8 weeks because of the whole pandemic. Booz Allen Hamilton as a whole cut their entire internship. So I was fortunate enough to be at the one and only location that managed to still be able to put on an internship. And I guess the pay, everyone wants to know what the pay is. It's based on your year in school. I'm sure it's pretty similar to every other internship opportunity. Most pay along that same scale. So if you're a freshman and you get an internship, you're not going to get paid as much as a senior who's about to graduate or a junior who's going into their senior year. So just keep that in mind when you start applying for internships. But yeah, that's kind of all I have on my front. If you guys have any questions directly about Booz Allen Hamilton or just any internship questions in general, just feel free to direct message me, and I should be able to answer all of your questions that you might have.
All right. Cool. Thanks, Jordan. Move on to the next one. Jacob, you here?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. All right. So I'm going to be talking about an internship that happened actually a year ago in 2019. So I interned at GHU APL, which is Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Lab, back in 2019. I currently work there full time, so I transitioned. So this last summer, I started full time after I graduated. So I believe most groups either didn't have interns or those that did were fully remote this last summer. Unknown for next summer, we'll see. But basically, for those of you who don't know, GHAPL is separate from the actual university. It operates as a UARC, which is a university affiliated research center. So this makes it count for your guys' cyber core requirements, just like the other national labs. The lab does a lot of cool things with NASA and space and missiles, but you guys can get a ton of that from the Wednesday presentation if you guys want to hear more about like generally what the lab does. What I did, I basically worked in the Resilient Military Systems Group, which is a name that doesn't correspond to QCM. The way they do groups is really kind of just where you sit, whatever work you want to do with whatever sponsor or whatever project. The lab does a really good job at kind of pairing you, especially as an intern, with several different projects that are things that you're interested in, so you can kind of get a taste of everything that the lab has to offer. Me particularly, I was interested in things like offensive security and like black box assessments and stuff like that. So I had a lot of opportunity to be able to look at military systems, things like all the group in general looks things at like planes and submarines and stuff like that. As an intern, I looked at things like virtual machines, kind of tried to advise on where things could be broken, kind of like very similar to Hack the Box, to be honest, except in real life, if it obviously got broken, it was a much bigger deal. But the lab, while you're there as an intern, they have tons of great things to do, such as like weekly tours. They have barbecues. When I first got out there, they had a whole barbecue with free crab and pop and other adult beverages, if you'd like those, which is really, really awesome. They have a lot of maker spaces. They have 2 of those, actually, which if you're interested in things like 3D printing or soldering boards or anything to do with like hardware hacking, there's basically a space for that. You just kind of have to go fill out a little waiver that says I'm responsible. And all of the supplies are paid for, and you can, on your own time, pretty much make whatever you want. Same thing for VR. We have a whole VR lab, which is pretty cool. But if your interest isn't in offensive security or anything like that, the lab also does a lot of stuff like with RE, malware analysis. Some groups do like car hacking, stuff like that. The point is, if you come there with a general mind of what you want to do, they're going to pair you with projects that are going to be interested in you. Next slide. So I basically just threw a bunch of photos here. Basically, it's in the Maryland area. It takes place in Laurel. So we only have one location. We're not like Booz, where we're international. But the nice part about being in one area is there's tons of affordable housing just in that area, with a lot of deals with the landlords and the companies for if you are a JHU APL employee. So you can get things like no, you don't have to put any sort of rent down in advance, or you get cheaper rent and stuff like that. APL for interns pays for full relocation, which was something that was pretty unique as an intern that I was looking for. So they'll either reimburse you mileage or plane tickets. Not very many places, I guess, that I was looking at do that, besides like NSA. So that was pretty cool. And for full time, they do the whole 9 yards. They'll move all your stuff out here. They'll pay for you to come out and kind of get a lay of the land in a hotel for up to like 30 days. Other than that, DC is only like a 45-minute drive if you haven't never been there, which if you're cybercore, you will be. 2 hours from Philadelphia and like 3 hours from New York. That's something that interests you. Other than that, I'll be at the career fair on Wednesday if you guys are interested, or you can hit me up on Slack at Ericoto, or send me an email if you want more info.
All right. Thanks, Jacob. Have we had a Michael sighting yet?
Yeah, I'm here.
You're here.
Yes, sir.
I didn't get your slides till last minute. Would you mind sharing your screen?
Yeah,
And
of
your
course.
notes?
How well can y'all hear me?
You're good?
Sweet. All right. How does this look? Can you all see the PowerPoint presentation?
Not yet.
Nope.
Oh, there he goes.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, it seemed like it broke when I tried to go full screen, so I'll just do this. So my name is Michael Fonlander, and this is my second year at Dakota State University. And over the summer, I worked at MITRE Corporation, and they are a very cool organization that I'm going to tell you about. I don't have a whole lot of pictures on the slides, but it will be very short and sweet. So what I did over the summer for MITRE is I made a HTML or web form basically to create reports in JSON format so that information and intelligence can be shared more easily through organizations. And so I'll get into more of the different sectors that MITRE is involved in. But I was under the cybersecurity sector, and I was working specifically with malware reverse engineering and their efforts in that intelligence sharing aspect of it particularly. And so they were a big part of their job is to write reports and have detailed information about samples of malware. And so in order for that information to be shared with their infrastructure, it has to be formatted a certain way. So I basically made a program that would handle the I don't know what the right word is, but it would format the information correctly for their needs. And I also worked on a firmware reverse engineering module that they had. That was actually an intern specific training module. So all the interns could choose a training module to learn more about at MITRE, and this was the closest one to cybersecurity. And what we did is several of full-time MITRE employees put together labs and activities to show the new interns how to reverse engineer firmware, which is a very cool experience. And I'll get into more of that with later in the presentation. So for those of you who aren't familiar with MITRE, it's a corporation. It's completely not associated with any business. They're not for profit, but they contract for the government through FFRDCs. And you don't have to listen to the acronym of that. Basically, the government will go to MITRE with a specific problem, and then MITRE will tackle it basically. And because of how they're positioned as a totally neutral party, they're able to handle a lot of classified contracting, and I'll show you in a minute a lot of the sections that they're involved in. And MITRE is a United States corporation. They have locations all over the country. For most of Dakota State University graduates, the locations that you'll be working out of are Fort Meade in Virginia and McLean, also in Virginia. So those are the two big cybersecurity locations that they operate in. But depending on what your major is, you might have the opportunity to go to other locations. So I hinted at this earlier. They're involved in 6 major categories of work for the government. The first is the United States court system. The courts, especially with the recent COVID-19 case, pandemic, the courts have had to readjust really quickly to accommodate for justice to continue to be carried out in the country, but just remotely. Now, the U.S. courts FFRDC was operating before the pandemic, and they were working to update the infrastructure of the U.S. court system to be more modern. They also operate a healthcare or FFRDC, and they work with. They have a lot of virologists who work on potential pandemics like the one we saw with COVID-19. They have a subsection of that FFRDC that is working on a contact tracing program, and they are involved in several different fields with respect to medicine and global interests with medicine, especially threats to America. And the third one, I have courts twice. The third one is cybersecurity, and obviously they work with hacking, all sorts of hacking. And they contract for a variety of different sponsors. And some of the work that they do, they're working to support the election integrity this year and every year, ever since the 2016 election. And they also work with the government to secure their systems better and to better support, better defend America. The FFRDC that I did not include in this is the Department of Homeland Security. They operate a FFRDC for that organization, an entity. I'm not too familiar with that one. And I also copied healthcare and cybersecurity twice. So let me just look up here. I got a lot going on my browser. Oh, yes, they work with aviation and the civil agency modernization. The aviation FFRDC is basically the FAA. They support the FAA in making sure that all the they control all the air traffic control units, and they make sure that everything goes smoothly without any everything's all flights are optimized, and the infrastructure backing flights in the country are streamlined. And then they also operate with the civil agency modernization, and that is an FFRDC sponsored. They work for the IRS, and they also work for the IRS is their main contract, and they work with fraud and currency and supporting the U.S. dollar, and they make neutral policy recommendations to lawmakers. And getting on to benefits from MITRE, they pay you really well, and they pay you even better with experience. They have a whole set of a whole library of classes that you can take. So that format would be sort of like a class you can take at DSU, except it's taught by an employee at MITRE who has an expertise in a particular area of work. And so if you ever need to transition to a different job, they have 3-day, 7-day courses that you can take to learn these new skills or tactics in your job. So that's a very cool aspect of MITRE, is that they have so much knowledge. They have such a big knowledge base that employees can pull from. And their culture is also very important and I found very refreshing. Especially for a new coming intern who has never had an internship before. It was a very cool experience to be welcomed at MITRE and supported, especially by the knowledge base and library that I told you about. And then the final benefit that I experienced from MITRE, I didn't experience this necessarily because the internship that I worked was remote, but they will also help you move out to any location that you work at. So if you have to relocate from another state, they will help support you financially to make that happen, and provide work with you to connect you with other MITRE employees. So if you're moving in from another state, you can have the opportunity to room with another MITRE employee just to make everything a little as smooth of a transition as possible. So I found all those 4 benefits very refreshing and very cool. They take care of their employees so well. And so I think I'll just wrap up the presentation. Can I answer any questions from anyone? I wasn't on mute for that whole time, was I?
No, you're good.
Okay.
All right. Who we got next? Okay. Can everyone still see my screen? And then Colin, you're up next.
Yeah, can everyone hear me?
Yep.
All right. So I'm Colin. I worked at LANL for the past 2 summers, and the first summer I was there was in the Supercomputer Institute. It's one of their many summer schools. I know they have like a supercomputer one, which is working in high performance computing or like large cluster computers. They have a parallel school, quantum computing, machine learning. I believe they have a security school. They have different like schools where throughout the summer you take some classes. They're a couple weeks, and then you perform research in that field. So with the Supercomputer Institute, the first 2 weeks we actually built a cluster and then tore it down 3 different times and built it in different ways. And we showed that the cluster could work and everything. And then we performed research on it. My specific research topic was doing some stuff with SFlow. It was one thing that's really cool is that the research you're doing, it's real research, and you can submit it to the International Supercomputing Conference. And I know several students from DSU have actually gotten their research accepted. My research got accepted last year. If anyone knows Cody Everson, his research was accepted, and he got to go to it too. It was a pretty cool opportunity that they give you with your research that you do there. And then I ended up going back this past summer. I was working with some scientists, and they wanted me to do some machine learning. That's what these images are. It's just some cloud detection algorithms and some like water detection algorithms that I worked on throughout the summer. They have a lot of different opportunities. If you don't want to do a summer school, you can actually just apply for a general internship where you just perform research and you just have mentors, you do research. But if you're kind of new to a field, specifically HPC, I highly recommend doing like the summer school because you learn a lot of unique stuff about how it works. One thing I really do encourage if you want to work at LANL is that you apply early. You can get a job later. Like I know some people will wait till like March. The problem is housing here is a pain in the butt to get. It takes several months of just looking on like every forum and everywhere to just find a house, and it's very overpriced, and you'll oftentimes have like an hour and a half commute. But if you get your job early, you can get good housing at good prices. But the longer you wait, the harder it is. And I know people that actually like lived in their car over the summer because they just couldn't find housing. It's terrible, and it's an issue they're trying to address. But if you want to work at LANL, it's definitely something to look into early on. One thing that's really cool is the area is beautiful. It's in the northern New Mexico. It's a city or a little town called Los Alamos. It's like an hour northwest of Santa Fe. There's a lot of hiking and such. If you want to go to the next slide. And so it just kind of shows some images of the area. In the top left, I saw a guy wearing like a full-on Captain America suit driving around. It was kind of funny. One really cool thing that LANL does is they give you the opportunity to take a lot of tours around the lab and different things. So the rock that I'm holding there and right beside it, that room in the bottom left corner, that was all from the Trinity site, which is where the first atomic bomb was ever like blown up. And LANL was responsible for like the whole Manhattan project. That's where it took place. And so that's primarily what their research is in nuclear weapons and such. And this area isn't really open to the public. It's open twice to the public every year. We have to like do a whole lottery thing to go there. But LANL gives their employees an opportunity to go tour it. So I got that opportunity, and it's really cool because the area it's not what you really expect. It's just like a lot of flat area, and then some places you can't really take pictures of. And then they show you where the bomb was actually assembled, and that's what that plutonium assembly room is. That's where they actually assembled the bomb. It's just in a little farmhouse. There's nothing fancy about it. Then some of the other images are just showing how the area is really, really cool. There's a lot of hiking and a lot of climbing. In the next slide, I'll show you some climbing stuff. And then the other image of the goofy looking like tree thing, that's in Santa Fe. It's like a museum. It's called Meow Wolf, and it's really popular. It's really famous, apparently, too. It's really odd art. And there's like, I don't know, it kind of shows an image of it. It's really hard to explain, but it's really, really cool to go and see. There's like a really big puzzle in there where there's a storyline and you have to follow it and take like several hours to do, but it's pretty cool. If you want to go to the next slide. So as I said, climbing is a really big thing there, and that's what shows up there on the top left, and then the top right, that big image is like at the top of one of the rocks you climb. Once you get to the top of it, it's like really, really pretty. It's not in the desert part of New Mexico. It's like where the mountains are kind of ending, where the Rockies are ending. So you get a lot of those, big cliffs and such. And then one really cool thing about the area is if you like spicy food, they have a lot of spicy food in the area. Even like the McDonald's menu is different. The bottom left is showing is they even have like green chili double cheeseburgers, because green chili is a really, really big thing down there. Like everyone is obsessed with green chili. Whenever you order food, like they will always ask you, do you want green chili on that? Just because they really, really love it. The other images are just some images I took hiking, because that's also a really big thing down in the area. So the area is really cool, and the jobs were a lot of fun that I had. I know a lot of people enjoyed it. Again, I just really recommend that if you are looking at getting a job there, that you do it early on. I know Lana will be at the career fair coming up, and definitely talk to them. And if you can get a job lined up before Christmas, you're in a really good position compared to other people. So, any questions? All right.
Thanks, Colin. Hans, you're up next.
All right, sweet. Okay, so I'm Hans, and I worked with the DoD summer of 2019. I didn't do anything this previous year due to the Corona stuff. So first off, DoD is a pretty wide-branching area of the American government for the defense. So as you can see here, there's tons and tons of things that you can do, which is really nice. So if you want to do something different, you can just transfer around the agency around, try to do different things. The part that I was a part of, basically the stuff that I look into was just those key fields. It's kind of vague, and I won't be able to get super in detail due to the nature of the work here. But the one thing that you can notice here that is if you want to get DoD work, it's very, very close to what DSU teaches here. Right, so we see here security fundamentals, right? We have 2 classes on that. Software versus engineering, we have 2 classes on that. So going through here gets you a really nice start for having the knowledge base that you really need to start working here at the DoD. Next slide. And nice thing too is that a lot of the internships that you can do for the DoD come with a ton of training to get started. So mine had 8 weeks of just raw training, and then 4 weeks of basically just do the project that was assigned to our group. And when I say 8 weeks of training, basically what it is you spend 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, just doing training, and just basically one topic a week. So it's basically like earning your college degree again within that short little 8-week time span. So it's pretty intense training, but it's really, really fun because you get to see some really cool things. And then another thing that I would recommend too is just that if you don't want to super commit, or if you're not fully confident on your skills and stuff, since you get so much training, it's really good just to get exposure to the field while still getting all of this training from a lot of these key experts that they come in and teach you. And you meet a ton of cool people, right? You're gonna meet a lot of people they don't really know exist, just because, again, the nature of the work, a lot of classified stuff. And there's a lot of tours you can do. Since the DoD is so branching, there's so many different locations that you can be like, hey, I want to go tour there. I'm going to go talk to my supervisor and be like, hey, are there any tours here at this time? And they'll basically let you leave the internship and say, yeah, we can get you scheduled there, and you get just to start networking with a bunch of people and just trying to figure out, I didn't really like doing this. Are there any other things that I can do inside of the agency and stuff like that? Another thing too is that I'd also recommend applying as early as possible. The clearance process is pretty painful and pretty long. So getting started as soon as possible. That way, if there are any issues, you got them cleared up early. because my clearance did not get approved until 1 week before I was supposed to head out there. So pretty nerve binding on my end, but hey, we got it figured out, and it was really cool. So another thing to note too is that I can't get too much more specific with what I did because of classified work. But if you want to know anything more, come talk to me. Just DM me, or I can meet with you, and I can get a little bit more specific just to talk about more of what I did. I just can't get too much more specific. But again, really good knowledge base from DSU, transfers over really, really nicely, and I would highly recommend doing some internships here. But other than that, that's all I really have about the DoD.
All right, thanks, Hans. Chris, you're next.
Hey everybody. So this summer, I worked from my basement in Madison for Idaho National Labs, based out of like around Idaho Falls. Part of it is in Idaho Falls, Idaho. It's my official title was a structured threat analysis intern, and a lot of my work ended up being around sort of firmware analysis, and ended up by the end, I ended up doing a lot of machine learning for firmware analysis, machine learning for just like binaries that we hadn't seen before, comparing them, and I'm not sure how much more to share about the project. What I can say, for my main project, I ended up doing something along the lines of taking a binary that was stripped and being able to predict with a percentage confidence what one of the functions in that binary was. If it was zlib or if it was something along those lines, I was able to say that function is probably this. And so the goal of the project was, after going through categorizing and storing various information about a bunch of functions like that, you would be able to have some sort of reverse engineering framework that handles all of that for you. So you could roll through and be like, this is probably printf, without having to really give it a second look. And then there were a couple other things involved in that, but that was generally my big project that I ended up reporting on. And I got to work under the very lovely Michael Cutshaw, who was technically in charge of us, but also, and when I say us, it was me and Micah, who is I believe the malware club president. So, but yeah, we got to work under him and basically give him crap all summer. So that was a good time. So there's that. INL specifically is, they are a part of the Department of Energy. They are mainly they're mainly like a nuclear research facility. They do a lot of work with that. I met a lot of students that were like nuclear engineering students, like as interns this summer, and they were all like insane. And then they also do sort of like critical infrastructure security, which that's a fancy way of saying they do like IoT SCADA stuff. And that means that there's work involved with that. So some of our work actually that we did might actually tie in with, if it ends up being used someday, it might actually tie into securing some infrastructure along those lines, being able to just run something through an automatic analysis tool and then report information about it. But that's generally what we ended up doing. If I had recommendations, if you wanted to work for INL, what ended up working for me to snag a position, first of all, they love DSU students. And I think me and Micah were like their second round of DSU students. I think Cutshaw was the first round that I know of anyways. Basically give them a transcript, give them a resume. And what worked for me was giving them a bunch of resumes and then just kept like memorizing names and then keeping in contact with those people. and it didn't have to be like obsessive, like an email, maybe like once a month or something, just to check on things. And eventually, like with the amount of places that I had stuck my resume just for fun, something came back and they were just like, you want to do a phone interview? The benefit to INL with that whole process is they're very fast for their turnaround. Usually if they're interviewing you, they're probably interested in you. So I think it was like, I think they called me, we had an interview, and then that afternoon they had an offer for me. And so it was like a quick turnaround on that, which was nice. Actually, by the end of the interview, I was pretty sure I was going to get an offer. So that's really cool. It was a fun place to work. I wish I would have gotten to go out there. As far as housing is concerned, it seems like it's similar to like this area for like cost for stuff. They give you like a little stipend if you're an intern. So it pretty much would cover most or all of your housing. If you do end up going out there, they have travel reimbursement for when you actually go out there. If I would have gotten to go out there. And then if you're kind of an outdoorsy person, there's a lot of like hiking, climbing, that sort of stuff out there as well. So I think that's everything I can think of.
Cool deal. Thanks, Chris. And then the last one is Griffin. He'll be talking about Army.
Hey everyone. So I have interned with the Army for the past 2 summers. The first summer I was with the Cyber Protection Brigade, and then this last summer I was with the 782nd Mission Intelligence Battalion. If you guys can read kind of that bottom right chart there, that's an organizational chart, kind of like what Hans had for his organizational chart on the Department of Defense. This one is kind of splitting up like all of the units within the Army. On the far right side, you'll see next to Department of the Army up at the top there, you'll see Cyber Command and then Combatant Command. So the first internship was underneath a Combatant Command, all the way down there where you'll see like OpCon. I was on a cyber protection team, which is part of the basically the brigade theater, which is I guess the best way to sum it up is through their mission statement. So the Cyber Protection Brigade's mission statement, they all have kind of cool mission statements, but it's to defend key terrain in cyberspace, to deter threats and deliver effects that ensure freedom of action for friendly forces while denying the same for adversaries. And so basically I conducted defensive cyber operations using PowerShell, lots of PowerShell, a lot of commercial tools that we use in classes here at DSU, some of them that we don't use at DSU, but if you've gone through any of the classes like defensive security, offensive security, you're pretty much exposed to all the basic tools that you can learn other things, right? And then some of the proprietary tools that companies or that the U.S. government will buy, and they'll make them, so they'll buy them from contractors, whatever else it may be. And then this was for support of OCONUS networks, which is outside of the continental U.S. So I was in South Korea for the entire summer, 2 summers ago. Then last summer, because I was the first intern last summer with the Cyber Protection Brigade, kind of like testing their newer internships, and I was already previously cleared, so they got to do a lot of stuff with me. The 782nd, they ended up picking me up for this last summer because they wanted to bring me in and try and test a new internship with them. So I was their first intern, and basically that one was based in Georgia, and it was a rotation-based internship, and I trained in all sorts of different work roles, did a ton of stuff, right? What I did exactly can't go too far into it, but all of this stuff on this slide is pretty much exactly copy paste from my resume, but I have projects and work role requirements where one small project I did was I created a little contract tracing PowerShell tool that they can use to basically track, COVID within the workplace, or they can use it for detecting, insider threats. Then I did a lot of systems administration, a lot of Active Directory stuff. You need to know C and Python programming. Got some exposure to some really low-level POSIX usage, which is a kind of a universal, machine interfacing within the C language, and then some network programming, using sockets library, and then I got to do some binary analysis, and then of course a lot of MITRE ATT&CK framework, threats, tactics, and procedures analysis. Both internships are great. With the Cyber Protection Brigade, it was super awesome. I loved it. I got to travel and see the world. It's a really cool place to work for if you plan on potentially traveling with your job. Basically, you're working to help harden military bases all over the world, and working and kind of doing some defensive networks and some network hunt, right, to look for bad guys in the networks, and cleaning it up, and then issuing it and making it a lot harder to get into for the next time. Then with the 782nd Mission Intelligence Battalion, they've got a cool mission statement. It's a lot shorter, but it's underneath the 780th Military Intelligence Brigade, where basically they conduct cyberspace operations to deliver effects in support of Army and joint requirements. And joint requirements is, the joint forces. So that's working with the Navy, working with the Air Force, working with other, allied governments, right, and other allied militaries. So super duper fun. Next slide. So these are some pictures from my time in Seoul. Up at the top, I've gotten some awards for both of these internships. The top left one was a Department of the Army Civilian Service Medal that I got on behalf of the Secretary of the Army. It was awarded to me by my colonel that was overseeing all my work duties and work roles. The second coin there is given to me by my cyber protection team, and then that third coin there is a really big one. It's given to me by a 4-star general. So that's that was given to me by the Joint Forces General of Korea. So he's the one that's in charge of all the Joint Forces movements, and basically in charge of all of Korea. And his father was the one that created the Abrams tank, so it's kind of cool little family history that he's got. Then, lots of good food in Korea, super cool time. Went over there for a couple weeks at a time, came back, and then went back out there for another time to finish up the summer. I think I spent a total of like 1 week in the States. The rest was all overseas. They got meerkat cafes, which is that top right corner where you basically go in and you play with meerkats and raccoons and kangaroos and all sorts of cool stuff. When you're in other countries, right, especially Korea, they try to translate a bunch of stuff. So in that like bottom right, you'll see a sign that says onion people. Some things don't translate quite well. And then on the next slide, it was my time in Georgia. If we can go to the next slide. Yeah, and so Georgia's a lot different, right? You're not in a big city. You're mostly, you're based in Augusta, Georgia, which is, if you're a big golf fan, they hold the Masters there every year, right? So it's super cool area if you're big into golf, if you're outdoorsy, if you like hiking, if you like going to the lake, riding horses, whatever else you may like. They've got it all, right? And there's tons of stuff to do. They've got a cool cool breweries down there, lots of cool places to eat. Obviously, since this last summer, during the pandemic, there wasn't too much that was open. They've got Five Guys. I was so excited to have Five Guys. We don't really have that in South Dakota. And then, you're kind of in the South, so there's, swampy areas. If you order tea at the restaurant, it comes sweetened by default. The cost of living is like ridiculously cheap compared to if you're going to Baltimore, the Laurel, Maryland, DC area, East Coast, right? It can get pretty expensive unless you've got some sort of special thing worked out with your employer. Cost of living's great in Georgia. One thing to look out for, when you're looking at, applying within the Army or, some of the other places that aren't like your traditional, like NSA, FBI, CIA, DHS, whatever else it may be, part of Department of Defense organizations, is you want to make sure that, the job that you're applying for has the cyber pay billet, because presidential executive orders have increased the amount of pay given to cyber professionals within the government. Some jobs within the military don't technically, they haven't transitioned into those new billets yet. So you just want to work that out in your negotiations. I believe both of these jobs are within the cyber billets, but they do have some other jobs that are in support branches that are more under INSCOM, which is Information Command. So just be aware of that. Like Hans said previously, working for Department of Defense, 10 out of 10, highly recommend it. I went through the Department of Defense internships. The one that Hans went through, it's fantastic, right? Completely recommend it. It gets you into the door for most of your other government internships, and a lot of internships that aren't with the government, right? They kind of recognize that as like the premier internship because it's essentially school for a good majority of the summer while you're still doing projects. But you get to, like Hans said, you get to ask them like, hey, can I go tour this shop? Can I tour this shop? Right? Get a lot of exposure to different things. So it's a great starting point. 10 out of 10 recommend that one first before going to at least these two internships. But these two internships are really looking for more DSU students. They loved, the skills and stuff that I brought in from a lot of the courses and clubs that I've attended here at DSU. They're really looking for that, right? They've had, people that they hire that have, computer science degrees and other nature, but they really want to try and get more into like the security minded. So, even the computer science degree students that we have at DSU are still exposed to security. They're still going, to a lot of our clubs that, have a focus on security. So, a lot of employers are looking for DSU graduates. So put your name out there, make sure your college name is on your resume. Do good in schools and apply early, right? Because a lot of the cool jobs, right? They require clearances, right? And so you want to make sure that you can get that clearance. The clearance process, it's lengthy, it sucks, but it's not scary, it's not hard. Assuming you're a pretty good person, you have a good track record, right? It's pretty easy to get through, but once again, everyone's human. They expect you to make, some mistakes and stuff. So you don't have to be, an angel to get in or anything. You just gotta, actively be trying to do better. So definitely recommend it. Lots of good benefits within, the Army and a lot of other government groups, government agencies, and you get to work on stuff with the government that you wouldn't be able to do anywhere else legally, right? You get a lot of cool exposure to do some really cool stuff. And then on the next slide, I've got, there's an article that was written on my time with the Cyber Protection Brigade. I've got QR codes. I've got little bit.ly links that you can type in as well. That one, if you really want to know as much about that internship with the Cyber Protection Brigade, going to Korea and everything, that article has it all, right? It's got more description in it than I ever thought. Then the second link is to the Career Exploration and Advancement Development Program, which is kind of like the Army's kind of development program and internships and stuff. That's kind of what they brought me in through. It was like a pseudo type CEAD program. But if you put your resume through there, and you've got on there, you're a DSU student, and you've got all these different, classes and skills and stuff, right? Your resume will be picked up by the same lady that worked with me the entire summer, right? She's amazing. And then a USA Jobs linking for this Cyber Protection Brigade. That one, it shows it's a GS5 to a GS12. They pay based off of your education and your skill sets. Great organization. And then this other link for USA Jobs for the 780th, which is the other place that I worked with and worked for. That link is currently for a GS13, which probably you won't be able to apply for, but just keep checking. That's kind of the same stuff, that same types of job description, but obviously with the GS13, they're going to want to have you in a GS12 position for a year or two before you can apply for a GS13. So just keep that in mind. You probably won't be able to apply for it, but you'll see some of the qualifications and stuff that they expect of a 13, and then kind of tone it down a bit, and that's what they kind of expect for 12s and 11s and 9s, whatever. And then obviously USA Jobs, that's where you want to go for all of your government internships and government, full-time jobs, unless you're going to like a FFRDC, right? Those have their own websites and application processes. But for DHS, NSA, CIA, FBI, DOJ, whatever else it may be, right? It's all on USA Jobs.
All right, that's all we got today. Thanks, Griffin. If you missed the attendance link earlier, here's that again. Thanks for coming.
Was there did there end up being a winner of the terrible website contest, or was that a different club?
No, that's this club. We're still waiting on some judges to get some results, but we'll probably have those up tomorrow morning or tomorrow evening. We were supposed to do that today. Sorry about that.
No worries. I was just curious to see the awfulness.
Oh, sure. Yeah. We'll show them up at next week's meeting too.
I'm not able to get into the